Hey there guys, welcome to the next video here on the DuctTapeStuff channel. Really excited for this tutorial because this is the video where I'm going to show you how to make the awesome Iron Man Arc Reactor prop. But before we head down to my workstation and pretend to be the great Tony Stark, let's first start off this video with giving you guys an idea of what you're going to need as well as where to get the items for the Arc Reactor. So let's begin here. Alright, so a list of things that you're going to need for this tutorial. The first and most important thing is a Sylvania Dot It. And this is just simply a self-contained LED light. You just tap the front to turn it on. And they make a few different kinds of dot its. This one's like a dimmable one, so you can click it multiple times. That doesn't really make a difference. They also have a waterproof one. That'll work fine as well. You can get these at Walmart. I got a few there a while back. HomeDepot.com has them, and some home improvement stores will have them as well. You can also get them online if you can't get them anywhere else. They generally retail from about $3 to $5, generally within that range, depending on where you get them. And you definitely need one of these for the tutorial. It's a Sylvania Dot It light. A few other things that you're going to need is a stainless steel sink trap, which you can get at a few different places. And there are a few requirements for this, but I'll talk about those when we get down to the workstation. You're going to need Duct brand chrome tape for this tutorial. That's definitely a must. And you're going to need a secondary color, and I chose for it to be black for this tutorial, but you can pretty much use any color that you want. You're going to need a belt, and this actually has to go all the way around your chest instead of your waist, so definitely measure that out. And if it doesn't fit into one of the holes, you're just going to have to punch your own hole on there, so make sure the belt is long enough for that. You're going to need a glue gun and probably 1 or 2 glue sticks to attach things together. You're going to need 3 erasers, which I cut off the tops of 3 pencils, and those are essential to the tutorial. And lastly, you're going to need either a zip-up shirt like this, which can zip up just like here in the front, or you can use an old t-shirt that you don't mind cutting a giant hole out of the center of. So finally, let's get down to the workstation and work on the tutorial here. Alrighty, so let's get started here. The hardest thing about making the arc reactor is actually not making it at all. It's actually finding the right supplies for it. The 2 hardest things to find are one of these. Like I said, you can get them online or in a few other home improvement stores. But this is the part where you really want to focus on, and that's the sink trap here. And when you're looking for one of these, you can get them at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's. You want to get one that comes apart like this, so all you have is the actual sink trap here. There's nothing on top of it. Some of them actually have like grooves and everything in top, and they're kind of raised, and that's the way they're manufactured. You want to make sure that they're just totally smooth like this, and you want to look for a pattern that's more or less like an arc reactor. This one has a whole bunch of circles in it. My original arc reactor, which I'll show you later, had ovals, but I'm just going with a little bit of different here. You want to make sure it has a hole in the center and that it has roughly a good pattern of these holes around the side here. You also want to make sure, I would recommend you get your light first so you can take it with you and measure this, is you want it to be roughly about that much bigger than the dot light here, or the dot it, I'm sorry. And it's a little bit, like, it can totally fit in there, which is fine, and that'll work out perfectly. So now what we're going to do is start making the arc reactor here. So we're going to put all these pieces aside, we don't need those, and start on working on the dot it first. So our first step here is to make sure that the dot it has some good batteries in it. Most of them take AAA, so make sure those are nice and good in there, because you don't want to have to worry about that later on, because if they're nice and fresh, they'll last a little while and you won't have to worry about replacing the batteries. You're going to take a few strips of chrome tape here, and we're just going to cover up the rim of the dotted here. And these actually are 1 inch long, and they're a little bit longer than they need to be. We don't want to cover up that rim of the back here, which is the battery cover. So we might make them a little bit shorter than that, but for this tutorial, I can make them 1 inch just to give you guys an idea of how it works. And you want to just keep going around the dotted here until you have this entire, surface totally covered with chrome tape, so that you can't see like any of the writing or anything like that. So cover that entire surface around the edge here with chrome tape. Alright, so there we are. We have it nice and covered with that shiny chrome tape. Let's take the sink trap here and see what it looks like. So that's what it's going to look like there. It's kind of hard to tell because it's really bright on my workstation, but I'll give you an end result at the very end. You'll notice that it's a lot brighter when I actually hold it above the dot it, and that's exactly where these erasers over here come in, because you don't want to mash it all the way up against the light here, because it won't reflect a lot in there. So we're actually going to work on our sink trap here and then stick those erasers on. So let's do that step next. Our next step, we're going to take our sink trap here and we're going to lay it up like this. You're going to take 2 pieces of chrome tape and we're going to stick these right over this piece right here. So we're going to crisscross this right here. And the arc reactor actually works like a prism effect. It really bounces the light around a lot, and that's what causes it to look really cool. And obviously we have to poke a hole here because that's where the center light is. So we can either just peel these towards the front here or just cut those off completely, but you want to make sure that it's definitely clear of tape there. And that chrome on the inside will allow the light to bounce around a lot more, and a lot better if there wasn't any chrome tape there. So it's definitely essential to put some in there. So we're just going to peel those up and stick them down, and then we're going to work on attaching it to our Dot It. So after we've gotten the chrome tape stuck in the sink trap here, we're just going to take our 3 erasers, and you want to make sure they're all pretty much brand new. That'll guarantee they're all the same size, that they won't be worn down at all. And to get them off, I just took my hobby knife here and just, cut them right off the top of a new pencil. You want to arrange them pretty much opposite the lights here, and then we're just going to take a little bit of dab of glue, put a few dabs on there with the hot glue gun, and then stick those down on top of the actual light here. So do that step right now. So once you have those erasers good and stuck on, we're going to take our sink trap here and let's align it on top here, just ever so softly. You want to kind of get the effect that it just lies on there totally, it doesn't, flop in any direction, because you want to make sure that the erasers are making contact with this piece here. And to do that, you just kind of have to arrange it dead center. And that's why you want to make sure those erasers are stuck in equidistant from all 3 sides. You want to line up that center piece with the center of the light. And then what we're going to do is, once you get that point and it looks pretty good, you can turn on the light and see what it looks like from the inside. We're going to take a little dab of glue, put it on each of the top of the erasers, and then very carefully set this on top of it. So let's do that step now. So at this point, I've let this dry. This is one solid piece now, the Dot It, the erasers, the glue holding it together, as well as the sink drain on top. Next thing you need to do is put the belt around your chest. You have a helper help you do this. Maybe you need to make a hole in it so that it stays, because sometimes it really depends on where the holes line up, if you'll be able to do this or not. Make sure it's comfortable around your chest. You don't want it too tight that it cuts off your lungs or anything. So I'm going to put it on your chest, and we'll assume that it's pretty much on like this. Let's say this is the point where you want to attach it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a whole bunch of hot glue and you're just going to smear this entire place with it right here. Then what we're going to do is very simply attach this arc reactor right to that spot there, and just let it sit there. Don't push down too hard, otherwise you might crunch some of the insides, and then just let it sit there for a while, and that'll attach it to the belt here. And don't skimp with the hot glue at all, because you definitely want this to stay on here. Now after the glue dries, that is stuck on there, it's not going anywhere. And one of the greatest parts about this arc reactor that you're making is that any part of it can be simply re-glued if it comes apart. So like this whole thing falls off, you can reattach the erasers to the Dot It. You can put new tape on if you want to. None of this stuff is actually going to break, because it's just stainless steel, as well as the Dot It is pretty tough underneath. So you can just get new erasers if you need to. It's pretty much really simple to just fix it if it does come apart, and then you just keep trying until you get it right. It did take me a few times to get it right, but once I have, it's a great prop, and you can use it as well. Let's head back upstairs, and I'll show you where you can use that other strip of tape here, that other roll, and I'll show you how you can use that as a harness. So let's move on to that. So at the beginning of the tutorial, I showed you the black tape and told you that would have something to do with the very end. Well, here's my original arc reactor here. And one of the problems that you may run into when you're making this is keeping it on your chest. Sometimes it might slide down, you move around a little bit, you breathe, your chest expands. So you want to make sure that it stays on there and it doesn't fall off. Well, you can fashion a harness out of the straps here by attaching it to the belt, and you want to attach these, why you have the belt attached to you, and then you can just put these on your shoulders, and that prevents the arc reactor from falling off at all. So that's definitely one of the greatest ways to make sure it stays on your chest, because if it's down falling off on your feet, then it doesn't look like a very cool arc reactor. So that's one of the easiest ways to make it. This is my original one. If you guys haven't seen it yet, it's the same Dot It. It's a totally different sink trap though. It has the ovals instead, which I think it looks a little bit more like an arc reactor, but the trick is finding the right sink drain that you want with the right pattern, and that's how you can make it as realistic or as cool looking as you want to. So let's turn off the lights, and I'll show you what the other one that we just made looks like, and we'll compare the two. Alright, so here's both of the arc reactors. Here's the original one over here, and here's the new one we just made. I'm not really sure which one I like better. They're both pretty different, and like I said before, finding the right sink trap is how you style the design of the arc reactor that you want. So you kind of have to do a little bit of hunting if you want to get one that looks exactly the same as the ones I have here. I mentioned earlier about with the zip-up shirt. The zip-up shirt just allows you to hide the belt straps underneath, and that just allows you to make it look like it's actually attached to your chest. If you have that t-shirt that you cut up and just cut a hole out of the center of it, obviously you just put this belt underneath your shirt and you'll look like it's actually attached to your chest. So hopefully you guys liked the video. Real quick before we go, how to turn them on and off is really simple. You just take like a paintbrush or a pencil or something like that and just press the inside of the arc reactor here, and I'll demonstrate. You just push the inside here and it turns off, push the inside again and it turns back on. And you can use a paintbrush or a pencil or something like that. So catch you guys next time on the channel. Hopefully you liked the arc reactor tutorial, and I'll catch you next time.